welcome all to this exciting show with a very special guest. And like I always described you in our talks earlier, Sathology talks, that our timelines, the Vedic timelines are very different, and the chronology of events are very different than the Western timelines. Uh, there are many things in the Vedic timelines where we challenge the Western timelines. First of all, I'll tell you what I don't like about Western timelines on history, chronology of history, is that it imposes a predetermined outcome of events as per the timelines to justify the identity of the institutions. And the second thing is most of them are fake in terms of if you look at the cross-checking of any of the timelines proposed by the Western historians in the region of India, most of them are not correct based on the other scholars and other observers from within India. And India having a long tradition, they call it Bharat, being a long tradition of scientific observation, those timelines don't fit in. So without delay, I have a very special guest who has done a lot of research on these timelines, and also he's going to inform us about the Yuga calculation. Without delay, let us all welcome Shri Vedveer Arya. Namaskar, Vedveer ji.
Namaskar, and good morning to all the viewers from USA.
So first of all, I read your books, and last time we spoke with each other, you have done a lot of research on Yuga timelines, and most of the timelines are so huge, but those timelines which you told me last time, they justify the Egyptian history as well. They justify the ancient history of the Vedic history as well. So can you first, before we start off, can you explain us the basic concepts of the Vedic chronology?
Yes, Aditya. When we talk about the Indian chronology, traditionally we had the two parts. First is after Mahabharata and pre-Mahabharata. Mahabharata was a major an epochal event in Indian history. So we have the history in two parts. So the chronology also we have to work out accordingly. So for Mahabharata, even later we have a Buddha, and therefore we have many epigraphic and literary sources to work out the chronology. But now the challenge is how we can arrive the chronology from Vedic era to till Mahabharata era. Because during that period, no epoch of eras, the way we use after Mahabharata was itself an epoch. We have an Yudhishthira era, then we have a Shaka era, then Buddha Nirvana, Mahavira Nirvana. Various epochs are there after Mahabharata. Before Mahabharata, from Vedic era onwards, we have used only yugas. So actually, what is a yuga? Yuga was a calendar during the Rigvedic period, because whenever rishis, they have introduced the calendar, and they, based on astronomical observations, then they found that it is very important to have a mix of solar and lunar calendar. This is how, from the beginning of the early Vedic period, we started using lunisolar calendar. Once you use a lunisolar calendar, you have to have an intercalation, because a lunar year has only 354 days, where the solar year is 365 plus 0.25 years something. So you need to have there is a 11 days gap every year. So a Vedic rishis have envisaged a yuga of 5 years. Yuga means a collection of years. So initially the 5-year yuga, then they used to intercalate 2 extra lunar months. This is how yuga calendar has been introduced very early Vedic era. Now we can start count, because the same yuga calendar went into reforms. Why? Because we wanted a more and more accurate calculations. So over a period, the yuga duration kept on changing. This happened only twice. Once when we have introduced the Surya Siddhanta, when Mayasura wrote a Surya Siddhanta at the end of Krita Yuga. Before that, it was a 5-year yuga. After Surya Siddhanta, then it became 1200 years. Then same 1200 years has been increased to 12,000 years. When 12,000 years have been multiplied by 360, it became 43 lakhs 20,000 years for the Chatur Yuga. Now we have to establish a sheet anchor for this. So my research start with the fixing of a sheet anchor to this chronology. So for that purpose, what I did, since there is a reference of yugas, like Ramayana took place at the end of Treta Yuga, then Mayasura wrote a Surya Siddhanta at the end of Krita Yuga. If we can fix an exact date to the Mayasura Surya Siddhanta, then we can fix the beginning of Treta Yuga also. Then we will have a perfect chronology from the Krita Yuga, the end of Krita Yuga, then we will have a Treta Yuga. Thereafter, Dwapar Yuga ended at the time of Mahabharata, then Kali Yuga started. So this is how what I did. Please.
Yeah. So, sorry to interrupt you there. Now, when we talk about Brahma, because there's a day of Brahma, and the time period for one day of Brahma is a very large number, like 14 Manu Manvantara they say, and also it comes under, it's called a Kalpa. One day is a Kalpa. And also there is a very unique description about calculation of atomic time with Risa Renu, and also all these different small movements. Now, what is so first, before we fix or you discuss more about chronology, what are these timelines of a day of Brahma and how they are calculated?
Yes. First of all, since we are referring to our literary sources written in Sanskrit, we have to have a chronological order of the Sanskrit text first to understand how this concept of our timelines have evolved. So the Mahabharata and post-Mahabharata text, our astronomical text, they generally describe about the life of Brahma. It has a 360 days. So one day is equal to 432 crores years. Then one night also is equal to 432 crores years. So it becomes 864 crores, means you can add another zero for the billions. So this is how the one day and night of a Brahma. Then you have to multiply with the 360. Then that is the only one year. Then you will have 100 years. It's not that after 100 years Brahma will die. He will again reborn. So it's an infinite cycle. He might have lived infinite lives, and he will keep on born even infinite time cycle. So in a way, a Brahma's life itself becomes infinitesimal. Even a kalpa or even a 432 crores years.
Human experience.
So even for entire this mathematical expansion of these series of yugas, the basic is Chatur Yuga. Again, the Chatur Yuga, one Chatur Yuga is equal to 43 lakhs 20,000 years. Then for the 43 lakhs Chatur Yuga, one Yuga means one Kali Yuga is equal to 4 lakhs 32,000 years. So our basic calculation start from 4 lakhs 32,000 years, then it goes to 43 lakhs 23, means 4.32 million years in a Chatur Yuga. So what happens, thereafter you keep on multiplying 4.32 million, then you multiply with the 1000, then it becomes 432 crores years. Then we will just assume that okay, equal number of years are required for pralaya, means for the destruction. So the way creation has a 4,32 years, then destruction, then again recreation, so this is how the time cycles go on. But it is more, what I say, it is more philosophio-theological expansion, but it has a basis is the Chatur Yuga. Since we started our Yuga calendar during Rigvedic era, Then that kept on evolving because we wanted to have an accurate calculations. What happens in a calendar, you can't intercalate few hours or few minutes. You have no other option to intercalate one day or delete one day from your scheme of calendrical calculations. If you want to have only integer values, so you have to have a very long duration of yugas so that your intercalation becomes very accurate. So for this purpose, our rishis have enlarged. The 12,000 was the basic Chaturyuga, multiplied by 360, that became 43 lakhs 20,000 years. This is how one Chaturyuga evolved. Thereafter, it is more theological. We went on saying that this is. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to convince that how someone has counted the years during the pralaya. Nothing existed. So it's more.
So coming back to one question, how accurate is BC and AD version of the Western historians?
I think if we look at the NASA website, now they started using Common Era and before Common Era. It's only just in addition of a 0 year, because there is no 0 year at all. You can't jump from 1 AD to -1. You have to have a 0 year. So without that, astronomical calculations become very, very illogical. So they introduce the 0 year, then say, okay, let us call it Common Era and other. But right now, even it's a sheet anchor for entire world chronology. What happened last 300, 400 years, I think 16th century onwards, James Ussher, that Archbishop of Ireland, he gave the biblical chronology. Thereafter, Newton, it is a very surprising, I don't know, maybe many historians may be knowing, he wrote a chronology of ancient nations. And Newton, what he did, he contracted the chronology of Greece history by 600 years and more than 800 to 1000 years of Egyptian history he brought forward. He himself claims like that. Why? Because he used first AD as a sheet anchor to reconcile entire Western chronology. Now, in 18th and 19th century, all Western scholars, because they were almost spread over entire world, because the British Empire was it was big empire. So normally all Western scholars were there everywhere. So they started reconciling. Even Chinese chronology also reconciled with reference to first AD as sheet anchor. Similarly, Indian chronology. When they started reconciling with the first AD, they found numerous inconsistencies in the Indian chronology. Then they said, instead of that, they just identified the reference of Sandrocotus in the Greek sources. They mentioned that he has to be a Chandragupta Maurya. It's very strange. There is no reference of Alexander at all in entire Indian literature. There is no reference.
There's no reference.
No reference. Then how can you fix Indian chronology based on the Greek chronology? First you fix two independently. Indian chronology has to be fixed independently. Then you fix the chronology of Greece independently. Then you match who is contemporary of. You can't fix Indian timeline using the somebody's timeline. The Indian chronology has been fixed using the Alexander's date. So it's completely irrational, and our chronology has been brought forward by 1380 years. Otherwise, Buddha attained nirvana in 1864 BC, but his data has been fixed in the modern textbooks in 483 BC. There is a huge gap of 1380 years.
Yes. Now, coming back to the Indian chronology, and that's the work of Sathology, debunking mythology, and without fixing the dates, we cannot do that. Now, Krishna's disappearance from the world, which is 5122 years ago, according to Samvat, and 5122 years from today.
Yes.
Now, that is the beginning of Kali Yuga, and Bhagavad Puran is very clear that 1150 years after Krishna disappeared, Nanda came.
Yes.
And he and his 8 sons ruled for 100 years.
Yes.
And after that, Chandragupta Maurya came. And his 10 sons ruled for 137 years. And between Chandragupta Maurya's, after Chandragupta Maurya came Shunga dynasty, which is Chandragupta Maurya's reign, 137 years, and Shunga, Between that, Buddha came, Adi Shankaracharya came, and also Ramanujacharya came during the same period, and which comes out to be close to 3,800 years from today, before today. And when you put this chronology, then everything else starts making sense in ours from the Vedic point of view.
Yes.
And then automatically the Western tends to get rejected, and there is no mention, like you said, at anything other than Buddha was a Vishnu avatar, and Gautam Buddha, which we don't know from where he came.
Mm-hmm.
And so please, can you please throw some light on this fact?
So our entire traditional sources, as well as the Sri Lankan sources like Mahavansha and Deepavansha, all are unanimously agree that Buddha was born in the Ikshvaku dynasty.
Correct.
So Ikshvaku was the progenitor of his dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
But what modern historians teach us, they say that the Ikshvaku is a mythical. So your word Sattology now works here. Because how can be a grandfather is the mythical, but grandson is the historical? How a historian can explain to the world?
That's right.
Either both are mythical or both are, I can say, Sattological.
That's right.
So this is the major deficiency in the modern historical research.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever the way they are comfortable, they go. Wherever they're uncomfortable, they simply label it as a mythological, or they say that not trustworthy. It's not. If you have a doubting Thomas can't decide the what actually has gone into in the history.
That's right.
Not even a person is a simply believer in a Western, because there is a different way. A person believing, because Vishwas, Shraddha in Sanskrit language has a different meaning than the believing.
Yes.
So you cannot write history based on your beliefs or your disbeliefs. Both way are incorrect. What Westerners wrote Indian history based on their disbelief, because no, how can be such a, you can have such a long chronologies. Then they, instead of following the Indian traditional chronology, they took the Alexander date and they fixed some Sandrakotas as a Chandragupta Maurya, and entire chronology has gone tipsy-turvy right now. So we have to correct it. How? So I have used the epigraphic sources, because the Shakaira is still we are using. So let us verify. There are numerous astronomical evidences. I have seen the historians, they use conveniently archaeoastronomy when it suits them, they will accept as an evidence. If that goes against then chronology, they will simply doubt. No, someone has calculated backwards. I don't know. If a person can calculate backwards, means he knows all the rules of gravitation and others. It's not just mathematical calculation.
That's right.
Because the exact positions of the planets and the sun and moon, calculating back, you need the knowledge of modern astronomy.
That's right.
It's not so. Even today, softwares are struggling to get an exact date. Today, we have that delta T correction JPL horizons that reached at least some 7 to 10,000 years that we can calculate more accurately using that delta T algorithm. But if you think that the Indian astronomers knew that kind of an algorithm in the history, then you have to accept that they knew much more than what actually being believed.
Yes.
So what I did this, going back to that Surya Siddhanta, why I want to say that it is a sheet anchor. What it says, the Mayasura, he took a conjunction as an epoch to write in his astronomy book. So that conjunction, what he refers, all planets, sun and moon are located in the Aries on Chaitra Shukla Pratipada. If you, all 5 planets conjunction with sun and moon, it occurs maybe 400 years once. So, but on a particular day, it's very, very rare, because we need only Chaitra Shukla Pratipada after the new moon. So on that day only we need all planets conjunction in Aries. So one sun sign or one Rashi has a 30 degrees. So the conjunction has to be within the 30 degrees. when I simulated this, because let us find out what is there. When I simulated using the modern astronomy softwares, it gives exactly 22nd February 6778 BC. So you have to use JPL Horizon Delta T correction in that software. When you calculate it, exactly it gives 22nd February 6778 BC. So as per our Saptarshi calendar, that exactly sat 6777, because that was the 6777 BC was the beginning of the Treta Yuga.
Mhm.
So now this conjunction became a sheet anchor for arriving the chronology of before Surya Siddhanta chronology, after Surya Siddhanta. So this is how I worked out the chronology. But one more interesting thing is this Surya Siddhanta, what I found it, we have taught this chronology to not only the West as well as the East, because the Turkish astronomy also uses the 60-year cycle, what we use in our astronomy, 60-year cycle, and even Chinese use that 60-year cycle. For all them, the beginning was from Surya Siddhanta only. Now the historians, what did they just fixed the Surya Siddhanta at around 300 AD around, then say it got into updated somewhere 800 AD. So almost 7,000 years error in dating of Surya Siddhanta.
Wow. And all this is done with the purpose of trying to find or make some people relevant, especially the church. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. No, it is their objective was very obvious, because even some introduction they normally wrote this one because they wanted to rule India for a longer period. So they wanted to some way to groom the Indian people, having not so much pride about their history. So this is how they first attacked our history books first.
Yeah. So viewers, like some of you may not know, and many of you are new to this kind of talk. One thing really comes out in these discussions is that a lot of history, chronological history, even of the Incas, Mayans, and Aztecs that we see as Native Americans, has been fudged or changed to suit the church's objectives, and the same thing has happened to India. Now, with the Indian scholars, they have much more scientific calculation basis based on astronomy. Now, with Veer Araji, you must be knowing that the astronomy is considered heretic in the church. So it's against the principles of the church, and also the philosophy that the soul comes from somewhere else is also considered heretic. So,
Yes.
so many of these things are heretic in a way.
Now, one more interesting fact, what I want to say, before the Christianity was born, Greece was flourishing with all sciences.
Correct.
They had a philosophy, they had astronomy, everything. Why Europe has suddenly landed in Dark Ages? Since Christianity has been introduced to Europe.
Exactly.
Because they stopped the entire logical thinking.
Yes.
Otherwise, it never happened in entire other civilizational, so many civilization, they never went into Dark Ages. Okay, they finished off due to certain reason, that is different issue, because the Egypt was also flourishing. Only the Islam led Dark Ages in Egypt and others, or Babylon, or even Persia, Christianity in the Europe. So these two, the rise of these two religions led to Dark Ages in the Western world. Means from India, if you look at it.
So, no, very good point you made. Another thing which strikes me based on what you said, the technologies or the softwares, there is a dichotomy, because you are assuming from a base, and then you're putting in these softwares. So what is the extent of truth in these calculations from these softwares? If you can address it, please.
Yes. Now the chronology is a multidisciplinary study. It's not just only astronomy. We have to follow the archaeology also, and we have to use even the bathymetry. It's a science of studying the sea level rise, because after Holocene, from last 16,000 years, sea rose almost 120 meters above. It was 120 meter below if you go back to 16,000 or 18,000 BC. So when you study the Indian peninsula, the Sri Lanka was not an island before 7,000 BC. So there is a bathymetric evidence also. It says because Sri Rama constructed or raised the level of the seabed so that he can avoid the high tide or other, because Sri Rama was invading the Sri Lanka. You don't expect any friends there and they will be supplying the who will give the logistic support to your army. So you have to ensure the continuous logistic support from Rameshwaram. So you need a land route to Sri Lanka. So that time it appears that if we do the bathymetric studies, it's around that meltwater pulse 1C. This pulse took place somewhere 6,200 to 5,600 BC, 7 to 8 meters, the sea rose 7 to 8 meters. So that time the area, because this was the highest point of the land between Sri Lanka and Rameshwaram. So that area started submerging during high tide. So now it's only they filled up with the rocks and sand and everything. Then they raised the platform maybe 1 meter, 2 meter. So, and the yojanas mentioned, it's a very interesting study. What I did, I studied the Sanskrit text written before Ramayana era and Sanskrit text written after the Ramayana era. If you see the yojana mentioned is, it's not the yojana what actually after, because Mahabharata talked of one yojana is 13 kilometers or 14 kilometers long. But during Ramayana era or even Vedic era, yojana was only 165 meters or 169 meters. It was exactly equal to the stadion of the Greek. The Greek people use that measurement of unit stadion. Actually, that they took that unit from India only. So that yojana, if you 100 yojanas means it was 16 kilometers. Presently, the area was area is around 39 or 40 kilometers right now, because the sea level rose much more later. But during Ramayana era, only some 15 to 16 kilometer stretch used to be submerged by sea during the high tide. You have to simply fill up and raise that. This is the reason why we see that that's a natural formation. It's only just filled up and raised the land. After when sea level rose, whatever the mud other they just washed away, only some rocks are there and it became part of the natural soil. So that time Sri Rama needed a land route, because you're going to enemy land. You may have to take back also during the war situation, based on the situation in the war. So you needed a land route to Sri Lanka. So this has been, the Ramasetu was constructed, and then the smooth logistic support has been ensured. So this is how, based on the bathymetric studies also, the date gives around 5,600 to 6,000 BC only. Then we have to arrive with the Treta Yuga chronology. So though I took the sheet anchor from the Surya Siddhanta, because Surya Siddhanta written at the end of Krita Yuga. So the when the Surya Siddhanta has been introduced, initially the 5-year Yuga cycle was there. The same calendar remained, but we have moved to Jovian cycle, the 12-year cycle. This is the reason that is the beginning of our all Kumbh Melas is starting from the 6777. It's more than 8,800 years of history we have regarding Kumbh Melas. Because this was the turning point. We started observing Jupiter motion for the intercalation, because just sun motion, using the solar and lunar calendars, intercalation is not so perfect. So you have to use Jovian calendar also to ensure the perfectness in the calendar. So this is how, when 12 years has been introduced, then we thought it's better to have a 1200 years. Then 1200 years Yuga has been expanded to 12,000 years.
So, Vedveerji, this was a fantastic discussion, and viewers, so you can already see that the wealth of knowledge that he brings with himself, and we'll continue this series. This was just an introduction to Ved Veer Arya ji, and we're going to make different series on different topics, on each of these topics that he spoke on. But thank you for listening, and thank you for asking good questions. I'm going to work with him, schedule the next session to work on the questions that you asked. Thank you so much, and have a very nice day. Thank you, Ved Veer ji. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaskar, Aditya ji.